Okay, let's unpack this. We talk constantly about the need to be, well-informed, to really move past simple summaries and actually understand a subject. But sometimes the single biggest obstacle in deep learning isn't a lack of information. It's the sheer ambiguity of the fundamental keywords we use.
That is such a trap. You might be
Yeah.
connecting historical dots perfectly, feeling that sense of flow in your research,
Yeah.
only to realize that the core term you're relying on, it points in three entirely different massive directions.
Exactly.
And that ambiguity instantly creates this informational chasm, even for the most curious learner.
And that, for us today, is the focus of our deep dive. We are targeting a single, incredibly potent and surprisingly confusing term, Zhuangzi. When you see it, what are you actually looking at?
Well, when you're seeking thorough knowledge quickly, you demand precision. But when you search Zhuangzi, you are presented with a prime example of information redundancy and ambiguity, all stemming from one powerful name.
Right.
And our sources today, which are really just a simple disambiguation page, are the map we need to, well, surgically extract clarity from this confusion.
A surgical approach to a disambiguation page. I love that. It may seem deceptively simple, just 3 bullet points, but those 3 points are critical keys to unlocking foundational insights into history, philosophy, and linguistics across a huge section of East Asian culture.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Our mission today is not just defining the three meanings. We have to unpack why they share this powerful name and, crucially, how you, the listener, can train yourself to instantly recognize and reference the intended subject when you encounter Zhuangzi in any future reading.
It's a masterclass in information triage.
It really is.
So we have the foundational split laid out by our sources. We are told Zhuangzi can refer to 3 distinct things: the foundational text, the historical man who wrote it, and an ancient script used by a completely different group of people. Let's start at the beginning, with the textual artifact that shapes an entire worldview.
Okay, so we begin with Zhuangzi book. It's identified in the sources with the Chinese character Xin, and the source material labels it clearly, and I think quite elegantly, as an ancient Chinese collection of anecdotes and fables.
And that specific categorization, anecdotes and fables, is instantly revelatory.
How so?
It tells us that this is not a dry, systematic philosophical treatise, like, say, a heavily codified work on political administration. This is philosophy delivered through narrative, through storytelling.
That choice of genre is essential, isn't it? It means the ideas are designed to be accessible, memorable, and, well, most importantly, flexible.
That's it.
Philosophy delivered via narrative is inherently less rigid than just a list of doctrines.
Yes.
You get those mental placeholders, the famous characters, the strange encounters, the memorable metaphors, to attach truly profound, abstract concepts to. Absolutely. And you have to think about the historical context this text emerged from. We're talking about the Warring States period, roughly the 4th century BCE.
So total chaos.
Total chaos.
So,
Immense political instability, constant warfare, social collapse. People were desperately seeking a path for personal and social order.
and there were other options on the table.
Oh, many. You had competing schools of thought: Confucianism, legalism, Mohism, all offering these very structured paths.
Right. Do this, follow these rules, and society will be fixed.
Precisely. The Zhuangzi offers an escape from that, a path of fluidity and spontaneity.
So when they used fables, they weren't just being entertaining. They were creating a kind of philosophical shield against the rigidity of a brutal age.
That's a great way to put it.
I mean, you can talk about the meaninglessness of state bureaucracy in a dense essay.
Sure.
Or you can tell the story of a useless tree that survives precisely because no carpenter bothered to cut it down.
And the latter speaks.
It sticks.
Precisely. That specific parable, the idea of useful uselessness, is a perfect illustration of the text's central method. The world values utility, right? The tree that makes good timber, the man who serves the court.
Okay.
But Zhuangzi asks, what if utility makes you vulnerable? What if the path to true freedom and peace is to reject purposeful action and just embrace your own natural, spontaneous state?
Which is what the useless tree does.
Exactly. That's what the anecdote format facilitates. It offers not just a concept, but a fully realized scenario to visualize the idea.
Which brings us to the critical designation provided in our sources. Zhuangzi is one of the foundational texts of Taoism. That word, foundational, I mean, that carries the entire weight of the intellectual history we are discussing.
It truly does. When we label a text foundational, we establish it as having shaped the fundamental intellectual and spiritual framework of an entire system.
So it's not just a text, it's the text.
Right.
or one of them.
Right. In the context of Taoism, the Zhuangzi text, alongside the Tao Te Ching, which some people might know as the Laozi,
Yeah.
it defines the system's core beliefs.
Like what? What are we talking about here?
Things like the relationship with the Tao, the concept of Wu Wei,
Effortless action.
effortless action, exactly, and the embracing of natural processes.
So how does the Zhuangzi complement or differ from the Laozi? If both are foundational, what specific flavor does the Zhuangzi contribute?
That's a crucial distinction. The Laozi is often seen as more concise, more poetic, and it's often concerned with governance and the path of the sage ruler.
So it sets the framework.
It's a framework. The Zhuangzi, however, is wilder.
Wilder.
Oh yeah, it's more imaginative, far more radical. It's concerned less with ruling the state and much more with cultivating the individual soul's absolute freedom.
Okay.
It elevates the importance of skepticism toward language, toward conventional morality, and even toward fixed identity.
That sounds like a philosophy of profound intellectual liberation, but also one that's deliberately elusive. How does a text even convey something as profound as the rejection of fixed identity?
It uses perhaps the most famous anecdote in all of Chinese philosophy.
The butterfly dream.
The butterfly dream. The master dreams he's a butterfly, just flitting happily.
Right.
When he wakes, he asks the crucial question. Was it Zhuang Zhou who dreamt he was a butterfly? Or is he now a butterfly dreaming he is Zhuang Zhou?
And the implication of that story as an anchor in a foundational text is just staggering.
It is.
It immediately establishes relativism not just as an intellectual exercise, but as a core state of being. The boundaries we assume, man versus insect, waking versus dreaming, self versus other, they're all fundamentally arbitrary.
And that's the power of the book. It translates these incredibly abstract philosophical concepts like ontological relativity into a single, unforgettable image.
Right.
This is why the sources are right to stress the genre. It ensures the enduring relevance of the text, giving context to its content by immediately establishing its philosophical home and its literary method.
And before we move on, let's quickly circle back to the critical importance of the original Chinese characters.
Yes, that's where precision starts. In the academic world, especially when you're dealing with text translated across linguistic and historical boundaries, the original characters, Shamong, they act as the definitive identifier.
The anchor.
The anchor, exactly. When you see this alongside Zhuangzi's book, you have scholarly confirmation that you are referencing the specific written work that contains these fables, this core Taoist thought, and this immense cultural legacy.
It immediately separates the textual artifact from any other potential meanings.
Instantly.
So, to summarize the book, it's a foundational text of Taoism, built on anecdotes and fables, designed to foster spontaneity, relativism, and freedom, and it's firmly rooted in the turbulent history of ancient China.
That collective weight confirms its import. Any research concerning Chinese philosophy, literature, or ancient thought, it simply has to acknowledge this text is not peripheral, it is central.
Okay, so having established the book, the enduring cultural artifact, we have to now connect it to the man whose name it bears. Right, section 2. The man. We move from the philosophical text to the historical originator Zhuangzi, spelled Ide. Our source material details him as the historical figure known as Master Zhuang, Zhuangzi, and traditional author of the eponymous book.
So let's start with the name structure itself. The historical person's formal name is Zhuangzi,
Okay.
but he is immortalized by his title Master Zhuang, or simply Zhuangzi.
The suffix abzi seems to be doing a lot of heavy lifting here.
Yeah.
It's what transforms a historical individual into a whole intellectual institution.
It's perhaps the most important honorific in classical Chinese tradition. The suffix "izi," which is "lez," it literally translates to master or teacher, sometimes even child. But in this context, it is a marker of profound respect and intellectual authority.
So it's a title.
It's a title given to the founders of major philosophical schools, Laozi, Mozi, Sunzi.
So it's essentially a cultural lifetime achievement award, granted during or maybe shortly after their life, acknowledging their role as a sage who has fundamentally redefined the intellectual landscape.
Exactly. By calling him Zhuangzi, the historical tradition elevates him beyond his personal biography, beyond just Zhuang Zhou, and enshrines his status as a philosophical progenitor.
So you're not just talking about a person anymore.
No, you were talking like the authority of the master.
So when we, in English, use the term Zhuangzi, we're actually using the honorific title of respect and scholarly authority, which has basically supplanted his personal name, Zhu.
It has, yeah.
That speaks volumes about the reverence for his teachings.
It shows the efficiency of intellectual history.
Yeah.
The historical person is defined by his philosophical contribution, merging the personal name with the achieved title.
Right.
And this is further cemented by the fact that he is the traditional author of the eponymous book.
That word eponymous is key. Let's define that for us in this context.
Eponymous just means the name of the work is derived directly from the name or title of the author.
So the book Zhuangzi exists because Master Zhuang existed and taught those ideas.
Correct. It creates an immensely powerful, singular identity where the text, the ideas, and the man are all unified. It's a self-reinforcing link.
The implication seems clear. When you, the listener, encounter Zhuangzi in a philosophical context, you are referencing the historical individual through the lens of their literary output.
Yes.
The ideas are inseparable from the person who delivered them.
However.
There's always a however.
Here's where we inject the complexity that a deep dive really demands. While Zhuang Zhou is the traditional author, modern scholarship and even traditional Chinese commentators acknowledge that the text we have today, the 33 chapters, is not a single author work.
Wait. If he is the namesake and the text is foundational, how much of the book is actually attributed directly to him? This is where the informational depth starts to separate a true deep dive from a simple summary.
This is a vital point for precision. Scholars generally divide the Zhuangzi into 3 major sections.
Okay.
The first 7 chapters, known as the inner chapters, or Nipian, are widely considered to be the most authentic, stylistically unique, and philosophically coherent.
So that's the real deal. That's Zhuang Zhou.
That is believed to be the true work of Zhuang Zhou himself. Yeah.
And the rest. What about the other chapters?
The remaining chapters are divided into the outer chapters, Waipian, and the miscellaneous chapters, Zapian. These are believed to have been written by various disciples, followers, and later thinkers of the Zhuangzi school, who were compiling and expanding upon the master's original teachings.
So the term Zhuangzi really refers to a whole school of thought,
It does.
where the master's core ideas are preserved and then expanded upon by later generations, all under his honorific umbrella.
Exactly.
Does that dilution of authorship undermine the authority of the text? Or does it just validate the strength of the ideas?
I think it validates the strength of the school. The authority isn't damaged. It simply means we have to read the text critically.
Right.
The inner chapters are considered the philosophical core, the definitive statement on relativism, the butterfly dream, Wu Wei. The outer and miscellaneous chapters show us how later generations applied, debated, or sometimes even subtly altered those concepts. It gives us a dynamic view of Taoism's evolution.
That is a crucial distinction for you, the listener. When you're compiling information, if an anecdote seems stylistically different or introduces a concept slightly outside that core philosophy of freedom and spontaneity, you might be looking at the outer or miscellaneous chapters written by the school, not the master himself.
Exactly. The master's identity, Zhuang Zhou, becomes the eponymous brand name for an entire movement that lasted for centuries.
So his personal name, Zhu, becomes less important than the title Zhuangzi,
It does.
because that title carries the weight of the entire intellectual legacy, regardless of how many hands contributed to the final 33 chapters.
That's it.
Okay, so we have successfully anchored the book and the man to the same intellectual and historical lineage, ancient Chinese philosophy, the Warring States period, and the foundations of Taoism. They are inextricably linked by philosophy and name.
They're 2 sides of the classical coin, yes. But this is the moment where we have to pivot.
Uh-oh.
Because the same exact word, Zhuangzi, exists in a different cultural sphere, marking a completely separate domain of knowledge. And this is the true challenge of that disambiguation page.
It's time for the aha moment we warned you about. We're leaving the loftiness of philosophical debate and entering the highly specific world of linguistics and cultural history. Okay, welcome to Section 3, the script. We are introduced to the Old Zhuang script, known in the sources by its original name, Tari, and an alternative name, Sawndip.
Sawndip.
The source defines this as the script used by the Zhuang people in ancient times.
And you notice the immediate, just jarring change in focus.
Completely.
We have exited the Han Chinese philosophical tradition and entered the specific cultural context of the Zhuang people.
Who are they?
They're one of the largest official non-Han ethnic groups in China, primarily residing in the Guangxi region.
So this isn't just a geographical shift, it's a complete cultural and linguistic break.
It is.
The Zhuang people do not speak a Sinitic language like Mandarin or Cantonese. They speak a language belonging to the Tai Kadai family.
Which places them linguistically closer to Tai and Lao than to the classical language of the Zhuangzi philosophical text.
And that is the essential distinction you have to grasp.
Absolutely. The philosophical text is written in classical Chinese, the language of the Han intellectual elite. The old Zhuang script, Sawndip, is a system developed to write the Zhuang language.
The subjects are just. They're inherently incompatible,
Totally.
yet they share this name association.
Which is why that alternative name, Sawndip, is such a critical tool for disambiguation.
Right.
If you see Zhuangzi followed by Sawndip, you are unequivocally in the domain of writing systems and ethnic minority studies, not Taoist fables.
Okay, so let's break down what Sawndip actually is, because this script offers a really fascinating insight into cultural adaptation.
It does. Sawndip is not a wholly original script like, say, the Korean Hangul or the Arabic alphabet. It's a system of writing based on borrowing and adapting existing Chinese characters, Han characters, to represent the sounds and meanings of the Zhuang language.
So they were essentially taking the building blocks of Han characters and repurposing them, hacking them.
Hacking them is a great way to put it. It's a remarkable fusion. Sawndip characters can function in several ways. Some are adopted entirely for their meaning, similar to a logogram, but others are created by combining elements of existing characters to form new ones.
How does that work?
Well, you'd have one part that provides the sound, a phonetic element, and another part that provides the meaning, a semantic element for Zhuang word.
That sounds incredibly complex. If the Zhuang people lived alongside the Han, why not simply adopt the classical Chinese writing system outright?
Because the classical Chinese script, while powerful, was designed for a Sinitic language structure. It doesn't map well to the unique grammar, vocabulary, and tonal system of the Zhuang language.
It just doesn't fit.
It doesn't fit. The Zhuang needed a system that accurately reflected their own spoken word, particularly for practical and cultural uses that were specific to their community.
So what were those uses? If the Zhuangzi philosophical text preserved high theory, what did the old Zhuang script preserve?
It preserved the specific cultural life of the Zhuang people.
Okay.
Sawndip was historically used to record vital local material, folk songs, ritual texts, medical formulas, poetic narratives, local histories,
Wow.
and the scripts for Mogun, which are shamanic rituals, and Bujib, which are folk operas. It was a script of community life, not of imperial administration or philosophical debate.
That contrast is just phenomenal. The philosophical Zhuangzi deals with escaping the temporal world and achieving perfect freedom,
Right.
while the old Zhuang script deals with recording the immediate, practical, and ritualistic details of a specific community's existence.
And it highlights the difference between a universalizing philosophy and specific cultural preservation. When you see material about Sawndip, you are studying the history of literacy and the resilience of a minority language in the face of a dominant cultural influence. This is a critical field of research that is wholly separate from Taoism.
But the core ambiguity remains. I mean, how can one word, Zhuangzi, apply to both? It feels like too large a coincidence to ignore. Is there a shared root in the name beyond just the sound?
There is a likely linguistic and geographic root, which explains the overlap, but not the confusion.
Okay.
The term Zhuang often refers to a village or settlement. Historically, the Zhuang people were often identified geographically, so it is probable that the character was used either because of the shared sound or because the geographical term used to denote the people, the Zhuang, was later applied to their unique script system, the Zhuang script.
So the common name demands clarification because its origin is either a linguistic coincidence or a naming convention that became accidentally merged with the name of a famous philosophical master simply because they all use the same root character.
That's exactly it. The learner's dilemma stems from the fact that the term Zhuangzi, the master, is deeply rooted in the philosophical tradition, while Old Zhuang script is rooted in the linguistic identity of the Zhuang people.
Right.
So if a single resource uses the term without immediate contextual markers, like referring to it generically as ancient writings of the Zhuang, you have a 50-50 chance of pulling information from the wrong knowledge silo.
This is the definitive lesson in information retrieval. The very existence of the disambiguation page confirms the confusion is real. You cannot afford to just skim the context when you're dealing with high-impact, polysemous terms like this one.
When you encounter the term, you have to look for the clarifying keywords immediately following it. Does the discussion involve the Taikadai language family, phonetics, and the Guangxi region?
Then that's the script.
That's the script. Or does it involve Wu Wei, the warring states, and the Tao Te Ching.
That's the man in the book.
That's the man in the book.
That structural analysis of the keyword is the difference between efficient, accurate research and just a chaotic pile of conflicting notes. Okay, we've covered the three faces. Now we need to synthesize this complexity into a final, actionable framework for you. Okay, let's bring all three worlds back together and create a system of recognition for anyone navigating complex source material. We've unpacked the historical man, the philosophical text, and the linguistic outlier.
Let's review the trifecta, and let's anchor them by their core fields of study. First, the foundational book. This is anchored in classical Chinese philosophy and literature.
Right. Think anecdotes, fables, and the big themes of Taoism, Wu Wei, relativism, the butterfly dream.
Exactly. Second, my master author, Zhuang Zhou, anchored in history and intellectual authority.
This is the guy known by the honorific Speedy and the figurehead of the whole philosophical school that produced that multi-layered 33-chapter text.
Correct. And finally, number 3, the ancient script, Sawndip.
This one is anchored in linguistics and cultural anthropology.
And it's characterized by its use of hand-derived components to write the non-Sinitic Zhuang language, specifically for preserving folk rituals and cultural memory.
So the primary takeaway for you, the listener, has to be the absolute power of specificity over assumption. We saw that even small details, like whether an article mentions the Dijing or the Taikade language, are the definitive keys.
Think of it as intellectual fingerprinting.
I like that.
The term Zhuangzi is the name on the door, but you need to check the metadata before you enter. You have to actively search for those contextual cues provided in the source material.
So if you see the keyword Sawndip, you are instantly saved from mixing up cultural preservation with philosophical escapism.
Instantly. And this pattern, where a singular, powerful name either evolves, is reused, or coincidentally overlaps across entirely distinct knowledge silos. It's a common phenomenon in specialized fields.
This isn't unique to Chinese history.
Not at all. And consider the implications for a researcher attempting, say, cross-cultural comparative studies.
Okay.
If an academic is studying Zhuang Zhu's philosophical skepticism toward language, and they pull up a database of Sawndip logograms, thinking they're examining the language Master Zhuang was debating,
The whole premise is shot.
the entire premise of their research is flawed. The two systems of writing and the cultures they represent are centuries apart in focus.
And this shows the deep flaw in just relying on simple name searches. The act of becoming well-informed quickly hinges on this critical, nuanced reading of source identifiers.
Yes.
It means reading past the headline and focusing on the descriptor. Did the source focus on the concept of spontaneity or the concept of phonetic borrowing?
And this complexity forces us to appreciate the source material itself, that disambiguation page.
Right.
It acts as the ultimate reference point. It doesn't offer the answer, but it offers the instruction manual for finding the right answer. It recognizes that knowledge organization is messy and single keywords are rarely singular in meaning.
We needed to understand the difference between the foundational text concept of Wu Wei and the linguistic structure of the Sawndip script, which uses Han characters for sound elements. Those small details were the ultimate prize of this deep dive.
That ability to distinguish between these fundamentally different intellectual silos, even when the umbrella term is shared, is the highest form of information literacy.
You move past the noise.
And straight to the substance you were seeking.
So we went from one potent keyword, Zhuangzi, to 3 entirely separate worlds. The enduring, influential world of Taoist philosophy, the historical legacy of Master Zhuang Zhou, and the distinct practical cultural history of the Zhuang people and their ancient writing system, Sawndip.
And the sources confirm that a single, powerful name can be both a beacon of high classical thought, the man and the book, and a precise, essential cultural identifier linked to linguistics. The ambiguity itself is really a testament to the depth of history and language.
This leaves us with a final provocative thought for you to chew on as you synthesize your notes. Think about your own primary field of study, whether it's historical, technical, or scientific. What is the most critically ambiguous word you rely on? A word that, due to historical overlap or coincidence, could represent 2 entirely separate concepts. And what are the deep, distinct, and potentially conflicting meanings it secretly holds that could derail your research if you don't check the context every single time?
That moment of questioning the name itself. That's where true learning begins.
Thank you for sharing your sources and letting us take this deep dive into navigating the namesake. We'll talk to you next time.